There is a number that could change the way you think about memory after 60. That number is 60. Not 60 years, not 60 days, 60 seconds. Because according to a growing body of brain health research, just one focused minute a day of the right kind of activity may help activate the systems in your brain most involved in attention, coordination, and memory retrieval. 1 minute. That is less time than it takes to microwave leftovers, less time than it takes to check your voicemail, less time than most people spend standing in the kitchen trying to remember why they walked in there in the first place. And yet most adults over 60 have never been shown how to use that minute in a way that actually supports the brain. Here is the part that matters. The people who stay mentally sharper later in life are not always the ones buying the most supplements. They are not always the ones doing the hardest puzzles. They are not always the ones who simply got lucky. Very often, they are the ones whose daily habits keep the brain active in the ways the brain actually responds to: movement, challenge, coordination, novelty, repetition. Not hours a day, not a complicated routine, a small habit done consistently. And before this video is over, I am going to show you a simple 60-second exercise built around exactly that principle. But first, stay with me, because if I just handed you the movement right now, without helping you understand why it matters, there is a good chance you would try it once, forget it tomorrow, and lose the very thing we are here to strengthen: recall. And that would defeat the whole purpose. If you have been noticing little slips lately, forgetting names, misplacing your glasses, entering a room and losing the reason you went there, I want you to hear this clearly. You are not broken, you are not lazy, and you are not alone. Millions of adults over 60 have quiet worries about memory that they rarely say out loud. They laugh it off. They call it normal aging. They tell themselves not to make a big deal out of it. But inside, they wonder, is this stress? Is this age? Is this the start of something worse? That quiet fear can be heavier than people realize. Because memory is not just about facts. It is identity. It is confidence. It is the feeling that your mind is still yours. And once people begin to doubt that, even a little, everything changes. Conversations feel harder. Social situations feel more tiring. You start double-checking yourself. Then triple-checking yourself. You begin relying on notes for things you used to remember naturally. And over time, what begins as a small uncertainty can slowly become a way of living. That is why this matters. Now let me be clear about what this video is and what it is not. This is not a promise of miracles. It is not a diagnosis, and it is not a replacement for your doctor. What this is a practical explanation of one idea neuroscience keeps returning to again and again. The brain tends to adapt to what you repeatedly ask it to do. When you challenge it, it responds. When you engage it, it responds. When you pair movement with attention, effort with coordination, it responds even more. That is what makes this so important after 60, because one of the brain structures most involved in forming and retrieving memories is the hippocampus. It is small, deep in the brain, and absolutely essential. You can think of it like a temporary holding and sorting center for memory. It helps you take what is happening right now and turn it into something you can find again later. Names, faces, appointments, why you opened the refrigerator, where you left your keys. And as we get older, this system can become less efficient. That does not mean it is gone. It does not mean you are doomed. It means the brain may need more support, more challenge, and more intentional use than it did before. That is the hopeful part. Because the aging brain is not simply a machine shutting down. It is still responsive, still adaptable, still capable of change. Now, before we get to the exercise itself, I want to show you 3 early patterns many people notice long before they ever talk to a doctor. The first is the one almost everyone dismisses. You walk into a room and forget why you went there. It sounds small. People joke about it all the time. But what makes it meaningful is not the moment itself. It is what the moment represents. You had an intention, then something interrupted the path between intention and action. That tiny bridge, the ability to hold a goal in mind just long enough to carry it out, is part of what everyday memory depends on. When that bridge weakens, thoughts fall away more easily. Again, That does not mean catastrophe, but it is worth noticing. The second sign is the one that frustrates people most. The name that is right there, but will not come. You know the person, you know the name. You can feel it hovering just beyond reach. And the harder you try to force it, the further away it seems. That tip of the tongue experience happens to everybody now and then. But when it starts happening more often, many people begin to lose confidence in themselves. They speak less. They hesitate more. They avoid introductions because they are afraid of blanking in front of someone. That is not just memory. That is quality of life. The third sign is the sneakiest, because it looks like responsibility. You begin outsourcing everything: sticky notes, phone reminders, lists for lists, alarms for things you once remembered on your own. Now, let me say this carefully. There is nothing wrong with using tools. Tools are helpful. Calendars are helpful. Notes are helpful. But if the brain is never asked to rehearse, retrieve, or hold information even briefly, it gets less practice doing exactly those things. And like so much else in the body, reduced demand can lead to reduced function. That is why these small lapses matter, not because they mean the worst, but because they are invitations to pay attention earlier, when small daily actions can still make a meaningful difference. So why does this seem to speed up after 60? Age is part of the story, but only part. Aging often brings changes in sleep quality. It can bring lower daily movement. It can bring more routine and less novelty. Life becomes more predictable, which sounds comforting, but the brain does not thrive on autopilot. When we were younger, life forced new learning on us all the time. New places, new people, new tasks, new stressors, new problems. Later in life, especially after retirement, life can become beautifully steady. Same chair, same route, same grocery store, same shows, same conversation patterns. And while routine can reduce stress, too much routine can reduce challenge. The brain loves efficiency, but it also needs stimulation. That is where this 60-second practice becomes so powerful. Because the goal is not just movement, it is not just thinking, it is not just raising your heart rate, it is the combination. A little physical effort, a little coordination, a little mental strain, all happening together. That combination forces the brain to wake up. It cannot coast. It cannot rely entirely on habit. It has to pay attention, organize signals, coordinate both sides of the body, and maintain a mental task while moving. That is exactly the kind of demand the brain tends to respond to. And before I show you the exercise, I want to address one belief that silently stops many older adults from even trying. It is the belief that after a certain age, decline is inevitable, growth is over, and whatever sharpness you have left is all you get. That belief has done enormous damage, because once someone truly accepts the idea that this is just how it goes now, effort starts to disappear. They stop expecting improvement. They stop challenging themselves. They stop practicing recall. They stop moving with intention. And eventually, the brain adapts to that too. Not because it is punishing them, because it responds to use. This is one of the most encouraging shifts in modern brain science. The adult brain is not nearly as fixed as people once thought. Even later in life, it remains plastic. That means it can still change in response to experience, training, repetition, and demand. No, that does not mean immortality for memory. No, that does not mean every problem can be solved with an exercise. But it does mean that older does not equal finished. It means the story is still being written, and the habits you repeat are holding the pen. Now let me tell you why movement matters so much. Many people assume brain training must look like a puzzle on paper or an app on a screen. And those things can have value. But the brain is not floating alone in a jar. It lives inside a body. Blood flow matters. Oxygen matters. Balance matters. Coordination matters. Rhythm matters. When you move in a way that is purposeful and slightly challenging, you are not only working muscles, you are engaging networks. You are asking timing, attention, sequencing, and body awareness to work together. And when you add a cognitive task on top of that, such as backward counting or recall, you increase the demand in a very useful way. This is why simple, coordinated movement can sometimes be more effective for daily sharpness than people expect. Not because it is magic, because it is integrated. Now here is the exercise. It is called a cross-body coordination drill, and it is simple enough to do in your living room. If you need support, stand beside a chair, a counter, or a wall. If standing does not feel safe, you can do it seated in a firm chair. Start by sitting or standing tall. Relax your shoulders. Take one steady breath. Then lift your right knee and tap it with your left hand. Now switch. Lift your left knee and tap it with your right hand. Then switch again. Right knee, left hand. Left knee, right hand. Slowly, deliberately, back and forth. What matters here is not speed. It is crossing the midline of the body. Every time you move across that center line, you require communication across brain networks that control opposite sides of the body. You are asking coordination, timing, balance, and attention to work together. That alone is useful. But here is what turns it into a stronger memory support practice. While you are doing the cross-body taps, add a mental challenge. Count backward out loud. Start at 100 and go back by threes. 100, 97, 94, 91. If that feels manageable, try counting backward by sevens. 100, 93, 86, 79. If numbers are frustrating, say the months of the year in reverse. December, November, October, or name categories: fruits, cities, girls' names, boys' names, animals, one after another without stopping. The specific mental task matters less than one thing. It should require attention. You should feel just a little challenged, a little mentally uncomfortable. That feeling is not failure. That feeling is engagement. That feeling is the brain being asked to do something beyond autopilot. Now put the two parts together. Cross-body taps plus a thinking task. Do it for 60 seconds. That is it. That is the full exercise. And yes, it sounds almost too simple. That is exactly why many people dismiss it. But simplicity is a strength, because complicated routines often die after 3 days. Simple routines survive long enough to change something. And consistency matters more than intensity here. One honest, attentive minute done daily is more valuable than a complicated 20-minute plan you abandon by Thursday. Now let me help you do it the right way. First, go slower than you think you need to. If you rush, you turn it into flailing. The goal is not to finish, the goal is to coordinate. If you are moving so fast that the pattern breaks down, slow down. Second, do not remove the thinking part just because it is annoying. The mental effort is one of the main reasons this works. If it feels easy, it may be time to make the cognitive task slightly harder. Third, stay safe. If you are unsteady, use support. If you feel dizzy, stop. If you have heart concerns, neurological conditions, major balance issues, or any medical limitation, talk to your own clinician before starting something new. Safety is never optional. Now, let me tell you why people often notice benefits from this kind of drill faster than they expect. The first changes are usually not dramatic memory breakthroughs. The first thing most people notice is smoother coordination. Day 1 feels clumsy. Day 2 feels slightly less clumsy. By day 3 or 4, the movement starts feeling more natural. That matters, because it means the brain is already learning the pattern. Then something else often happens. People begin feeling a little more online, a little more present, a little quicker, not transformed, not reborn, just sharper in the moment. And this matters more than it sounds, because that return of mental presence often restores confidence before it restores perfection. And confidence changes behavior. A person who trusts their mind engages more. They talk more. They remember better, partly because they stop panicking. A person who panics at every lapse often makes recall worse. You have probably felt this yourself. The more desperately you try to remember something, the more your mind tightens, and the memory seems to run from you. Tension is not a good retrieval environment, but a brain that is practiced, oxygenated, and regularly challenged tends to be more available, more responsive, more willing. That is why the goal here is not to become a memory machine. It is to help your brain stay active, engaged, and easier to access. Let me give you a practical timeline. In the first week, Expect the exercise to become easier before memory changes become obvious. That is normal. In the second week, many people notice better focus during the day, especially if they do it in the morning. In the third and fourth week, subtle changes often become more meaningful. Faster word retrieval, better follow-through, less of that "what was I doing" feeling. And just as important, less fear. That may be the most valuable shift of all. Because when people stop assuming every lapse means decline, they begin participating in their own brain health again. Now I want to show you how to make this habit stick. Because knowing an exercise is one thing. Actually doing it every day is another. The best strategy is not motivation, it is attachment. Link the exercise to something you already do daily without fail. Right after coffee, right after brushing your teeth, right before breakfast, right after morning prayer, right before the evening news. This is called habit stacking, and it works because you are not asking memory to carry the whole burden of a new habit. You are using an existing routine as the trigger. Do not say, "I'll do it later." Later is where good intentions go to die. Pick the exact anchor. Make it automatic. If possible, do it earlier in the day. For many people, morning works best because the brain is fresher, the routine is cleaner, and there is less chance the day will crowd it out. Now, one more important point. Do not make the mistake of thinking this 1 minute is the whole answer to memory. It is not. It is a powerful entry point, a doorway, a practical daily tool, but the brain also depends on sleep, hearing, social engagement, blood sugar control, physical activity, medication review, stress, and overall health. If your hearing is poor and untreated, conversations become harder to encode. If you sleep badly, memory consolidation suffers. If you are isolated, understimulated, sedentary, or constantly stressed, the brain feels that too. So use this exercise as part of a larger mindset. A mindset that says, "My brain deserves use, fuel, rest, challenge, and care." That is a very different mindset from fear. And fear is what traps so many people. They notice a lapse. They worry. They withdraw. They stop challenging themselves. Then the lack of challenge creates more of the very problem they feared. We have to break that loop. This is one small way to do it. Now imagine something with me. Imagine giving your brain 1 honest minute every day for the next year. Not one heroic weekend, not a burst of effort followed by 6 weeks of nothing. 1 minute. 1 minute after coffee. 1 minute with focus. 1 minute that says to your brain, stay awake, stay connected, stay in practice. That is not unrealistic. That is not expensive. That is not out of reach. And over time, those minutes become evidence. Evidence that you are not helpless. Evidence that you are participating. Evidence that your mind is still something you can support, not just something you sit back and watch. That shift alone can change how people age, because helpless people wait, and engaged people train. Now let me talk to the person watching this who feels scared. The person who has been pretending not to worry. The person who laughed the last time they forgot a name but went silent afterward. The person who keeps checking for signs and dreads what they might mean. Listen to me carefully. Not every memory slip means disease. Not every frustrating moment means decline. Not every lapse is a prophecy. Sometimes it is poor sleep. Sometimes it is distraction. Sometimes it is stress. Sometimes it is the simple reality that a brain underused in certain ways gets rusty in those ways. And rust is not the same thing as ruin. Rust can often be worked on. That is why I want you to start from a place of action, not fear. Give yourself something concrete to do. Try the 60-second crossbody drill for the next 30 days. Do it daily. Do it honestly. Do it with attention. Do it safely. And notice what changes. Notice the movement getting smoother. Notice whether your mind feels more awake. Notice whether recall feels less strained. Notice whether your confidence improves. Write those things down if you want. Not because we are chasing perfection, because we are looking for patterns. Now, if you are someone who loves progression, here is how to keep the drill fresh over time. In week 1, use simple backward counting or reverse months. In week 2, try categories: fruits, states, first names, animals. In week 3, Alternate the task. One tap, one number, one tap, one number. In week 4, switch starting points, switch categories, switch speeds carefully while staying controlled. Remember, the goal is not chaos. The goal is just enough challenge to prevent autopilot. And if you miss a day, do not turn one missed day into a missed month. Resume the next day. The brain does not need your guilt. It needs your return. That might be one of the most important lessons in all of this. Consistency is not perfection. Consistency is returning, again and again. Now, if this message is landing with you, I want you to make it real. Pick your anchor right now. Coffee, teeth, breakfast, evening news. Choose the moment this will live beside. Say it out loud if you need to, because vague habits vanish, specific habits stick. And if you know someone over 60 who has been quietly worrying about their memory, share this with them, not as a scare, as a gift, a practical one, a manageable one. Because sometimes what people need most is not another frightening article or another impossible health routine. Sometimes they need one small action that feels doable today. This is that kind of action. Before I close, let me leave you with this. Your memory is not just a file cabinet. It is a living function supported by attention, movement, repetition, sleep, and use. It is influenced by what you do every day. It is shaped by whether you challenge it or bypass it. And while none of us can control everything about aging, we are not powerless inside it. That matters, especially after 60. Especially when fear has been whispering that it is too late. It is not too late to engage your brain. It is not too late to build better daily habits. It is not too late to move with purpose. It is not too late to ask more of your mind in small, consistent ways. So starting tomorrow morning, give it 1 minute. Stand up or sit tall. Cross right to left to right. Count backward. Stay focused. Breathe. 60 seconds. That is all. A tiny daily signal to your brain that you are still here, still engaged, still asking it to work. And over time, that signal may matter more than you think. Take care of your mind. Take care of your body. And if you have genuine concerns about memory changes, please talk with a qualified medical professional sooner rather than later. Early conversations are always better than delayed ones. But do not confuse every slip with surrender. Do not confuse age with the end of adaptation. And do not underestimate what one steady minute a day can begin. Your brain is listening to what you repeat. So repeat something helpful. Repeat something intentional. Repeat something that gives your memory a fighting chance to stay active, steady, and supported. Give it 60 seconds and begin.